The crowd fell silent the moment the iron gate groaned open. 3,000 aliens packed the observation deck of Kareth Station's lowest level, their compound eyes and bioluminescent pupils all trained on the same thing, the pit below. It was a circular chamber carved from black volcanic rock, 40 meters across, lit by flickering plasma torches that cast everything in shades of orange and shadow. The smell that rose from it was old and animal and violent, blood, fear, and something worse beneath both. At the edge of the gate stood Ethan Cross. He was unremarkable by almost any measure. Medium height for a human, short by the standards of most species in the Galactic Cooperative. No visible weapons. No armor beyond a worn leather jacket and cargo pants scuffed at the knees. He had a square jaw, calm brown eyes, and the posture of a man who had already decided how this was going to go. Behind him, 2 Kareth guards held electroprods at his back. They weren't pointing them at him threateningly. They were holding them nervously, the way you hold a torch near something you aren't sure is flammable. "You don't have to do this," said Raxer Thorn. He was the one who had tried to stop it, had been trying for the past 6 hours. Raxer was the station's monster guardian, a Valorian with dark violet skin and 4 arms, 2 of which were currently gripping the railing hard enough to bend the metal. His species were natural empaths. Right now, every emotion bleeding off the pit below was hitting him like a physical weight. "It's protocol," the station commander had said earlier in the chamber above. The human was caught in restricted Sector 9. "The law is clear." "The law is a relic from before first contact," Raxer had argued. "No one has survived the Vorkai in 300 years. Then perhaps the human should have considered that before trespassing. They had dropped him in anyway. Ethan stood at the gate and looked down. The Vorkai was at the center of the pit, and it was enormous. 8 limbs. Exoskeletal plating the color of dried rust, scarred from decades of fights. A head like a flattened anvil with 6 eyes, 3 pairs, stacked vertically, all currently fixed on him with the focused, patient attention of something that had seen 1,000 things enter this pit and had watched every single one of them die. It let out a sound. Not a roar, something lower, more sustained. A vibration that the crowd felt in their chest cavities and their bones. A sound that meant "I see you, and you are already dead." The guards shoved Ethan forward. He stumbled 1 step, caught himself, and then did something no creature had ever done in the history of the pit. He sat down. Cross-legged, on the volcanic rock, about 30 meters from the Vorkai. The crowd made a sound. Even Raxer, gripping his railing above, went very still. The Vorkai tilted its anvil head. Ethan didn't look away from it. He didn't bare his teeth. He didn't raise his hands. He simply sat, and looked, and breathed slowly, exhaling longer than he inhaled, the way you do when you're trying to tell something ancient and dangerous. "I am not a threat, and I am not afraid of you, and those 2 things are somehow both true." Raxer had studied xenofauna for 40 years. He had catalogued 93 species of apex predators across the Cooperative's territory. He understood, on an intellectual level, what Ethan Cross was doing. He did not understand how a human being was doing it with that level of calm. Below, the Vorkai took 1 step forward. Then stopped. Its threat display, the spreading of its upper 4 limbs, the brightening of the bioluminescent warning patches along its flanks, flickered. Started. Stopped again. Ethan still hadn't moved. "He's matching its breath cycle," Raxer murmured, mostly to himself. One of the guards glanced at him. The Vorkai's respiration. Every exhale, the human exhales. He's been doing it since he sat down. The creature's nervous system is receiving a biological signal that another large organism nearby is in a state of calm. It's destabilizing the threat response. "That's not possible," said the guard. "You can't communicate with a Vorkai." Apparently, Raxer said quietly, no one told the human. Ethan had grown up on a farm in rural Montana. His earliest memories were of the back 40 acres, the creek that ran along the south fence, and the cattle that would bunch up in panic if you walked at them too fast, too direct, too tall. His grandfather had taught him the first lesson when he was 5, never look at a scared animal like you're deciding something about it. His mother had added the second, they always know if you mean it. He'd spent his 20s working wildlife rehabilitation, wolves, bears, big cats that had been broken by captivity and human cruelty and needed months of slow, patient work before they'd eat from a dish left by a human hand, let alone accept a human presence. He'd learned 100 species body language. He'd learned to read threat displays and appeasement signals and the particular tension of an animal deciding whether flight or violence was worth the energy cost. He'd been arrested for trespassing in restricted Sector 9 because he'd heard there was something in there that the Kareth were starving to control. He'd wanted to see it. Now he was seeing it. The Vorkai moved again, not charging, not posturing. It moved the way very large predators move when they're curious, slowly, economically, head low, the weight of the body shifting in a way that said I am gathering information. Ethan lowered his own head slightly. Not submissively, just leveling his gaze. Reducing the vertical threat profile. He put one hand, palm up, on his knee. Open. Still. An offering of information, I have no weapons in this hand. I have no intention in this hand. This hand is just a hand. The Vorkai was now 10 meters away. The crowd had gone so quiet that Raxer could hear the plasma torches hissing. He could feel the creature's emotional state bleeding upward through the rock and the air and into his empathic senses. The sharp spike of aggression that had greeted the human's entry was gone. What replaced it was stranger, and it took Raxer a long moment to identify it. Confusion. And beneath the confusion, curiosity. And beneath the curiosity, working its way up through the layers like something buried trying to surface, something Raxer hadn't felt from a Vorkai in his entire career. Interest. Ethan heard the change in the creature's breathing before he saw the change in its posture. The low sustained vibration dropped in pitch. The limbs pulled in slightly, the spread reduced. The luminescent warning patches along its flanks began to dim. He kept his hand where it was. The Vorkai lowered its head until it was level with his. 6 eyes, looking at him. He looked back, not at the eyes, which would be a challenge, but at the space between them, the center of the face, the place that said I see the whole of you, not just the part of you that can hurt me. Then he did the last thing. He made a sound. Not words, nothing the Vorkai could parse as language. Something lower. A slow, resonant hum from the back of his throat, the kind of sound he used to make when sitting with traumatized wolves in the dark, something that wasn't speech and wasn't song but was simply the sound of a body that is at ease. The Vorkai took the last 3 steps. It lowered its anvil head until it was 12 inches from Ethan's face. He could smell the creature's breath, hot and metallic and ancient. He could see the minute tremors in the exoskeletal plating as old threat instincts fired and misfired and ran up against something they had no protocol for. A creature that was not afraid of them. A creature that was not attacking them. A creature that was simply here. The Vorkai pressed its head against Ethan's palm. And then, from somewhere deep in the architecture of that massive body, from some organ or structure that no xenobiologist had ever recorded producing such a sound, came a long, rolling, resonant purr. Raxer Thorn gripped the railing and felt tears running down his face before he fully understood why. Above him, the crowd erupted. Below him, Ethan Cross sat cross-legged on the volcanic rock with 3 tons of apex predator leaning into his hand like a cat that had found something warm. He looked up, just once, to find Raxer's eyes in the crowd. He didn't smile, exactly. But something in his expression said what he'd probably say later, if asked to explain what he'd done, and how, and why it worked. They're not monsters, that expression said. They're just animals that haven't met the right human yet.